Well, good morning, Lori Beth. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing great. It is so fun to spend the morning with you.
I know, and we actually have been spending the whole morning together because we just recorded for your podcast.
I
So
know,
this
I
is
love
awesome.
that. And I'm officially having coffee with Carrie, like officially.
I love it.
Officially.
You've got your coffee. I got my coffee. We are ready to go. So
Totally.
before we get talking about what is one of my favorite topics, and I know it's one of your favorite topics, can you just tell everyone out there a little bit about yourself, your family, and your homeschooling?
Totally. I'm Lori Beth Auldridge. I've been homeschooling for over 19 years, but my oldest child is 12. I also teach homeschool math. I'm just kidding. That's my joke. I used to work as a personal assistant to an international rock star for almost 10 years. And when we would go on the road, oh man, before road schooling was really a thing, they would go as a family, and me as their assistant, I would go with them, right on the tour bus, all of that. But the children needed to continue their education. They attended the Waldorf School in Maui, and they needed to keep it going on the tour bus. And they were like, "Well, should we hire a tutor?" And quite frankly, Carrie, I did not want to like manage another personality. Not that I had to manage personalities, but like my experience with tutors was like, your child is behind and I'm here to rescue you. And I did not want that energy with them and
Mhm.
their education. And I didn't want to have to share all these fun outings to museums and things like that with somebody else. I wanted to be the one. So I convinced them and myself that I was totally qualified to teach their children because, on top of all my other responsibilities, because I had two master's degrees in children's literature and creative writing for children and a bachelor's in communication for the child. I have no children of my own, but I am totally qualified. They agreed, and there began my homeschool education, my homeschool education, so that
Mhm.
I could then teach them. And I'll tell you, my own personal homeschool journey with my children before I even had them started on the stage of the Colosseum in Rome. We were on the European leg of the Dark Horse tour, and we were in Rome and we were on a private tour of the Colosseum, standing on the stage. And I was thinking about how I was going to apply this experience to the curriculum about Rome that was waiting for us back in the five-star hotel, right? Rather than just enjoying the five-star hotel or just enjoying Rome and the Colosseum. And it hit me like a ton of bricks. I was like, this is the actual education. So when I was thinking about that curriculum, it was like, there is nothing in that book that I can read to them or present to them or any Rome task I can ask them to do from this curriculum that even holds a candle to us being here and experiencing it together. So I went back home and told my then boyfriend, now husband, when we get married and have children, we are going to homeschool them. And he said, great. He asked me to marry him 6 weeks later on 12/12/12. So clever of him. We got married, what, 4 months later? Not even. We had our first baby within that first year of marriage. And it was like, here we go. It was happening. So the education continued, and I'm much more relaxed now than I was in those first few years, if you will, where I felt like I really had to prove that I was indeed capable of homeschooling somebody else's children.
Yeah, I think we all start that way. Not in Rome in the Colosseum, but with starting off with, I got to prove that we can do
Yeah.
this. But I love that you were one. It's hard to find homeschoolers like you that weren't accidental homeschoolers or COVID homeschoolers. Like you
Yeah.
knew you wanted to homeschool, and you're not even a second generational homeschooler.
Right.
You just knew you wanted to do this, and from the get-go, you hit the ground running. So I
Hmm.
love that part of your story. So you have how many kids again?
I have four children. They are 12, 10, soon to be 9, and just turned 4. So I have three girls and a boy. I was a perfect parent till about 4 years ago. And I am a better parent because I have a son and three daughters. So they're very close in age and all approaching double digits, two double digits, one approaching, but she can really hang with the double digit girls. And so that is a whole dynamic in and of itself. We're in our little women era, if you will, and
I
I
love it.
am loving it.
I love that. I only have two, but I kid with my son, but also with other people. Uh, when I had Joe, it felt like having three extra kids. So
Oh, I
I
believe
feel
it.
like I parented four kids. I totally had two.
We all have those.
But anyway.
It's awesome.
All right, so. I wanted to talk with you today. I was listening to your podcast, Elevating Motherhood. I absolutely love it. And there was this one
Mhm.
particular episode that really got me. It was on elevating our meals, right? And being confident in the kitchen. And so a lot of moms, this podcast in particular, I'm always talking about homeschooling topics in general. But one of the things that moms never really talk about when you start homeschooling or when you're burnt out and you're in that season of, can I keep doing this? A lot of it has to do with the fact that we just added the home educator hat
Yeah.
to all the other hats we were already wearing.
Yes.
And if we are doing the mindset of home schooling, doing school at home, and not that everything is home education, then the majority of our day is spent doing formal lessons. And so we sit there going, when do I have time to do all the other stuff I need to do, the laundry and the errands and the cooking and all that kind of stuff. So I wanted to pick your brain today about cooking because you're
Hmm.
a foodie like me. Um, but as homeschooling moms, we often feel like we literally live in the kitchen.
Totally.
And if you're like me, where a lot of our science experiments also took place in the kitchen, and also we didn't have a learning room or school room, so our actual quote unquote school room was the couch and the kitchen table. When I
Hmm.
say we literally lived in the kitchen, we did. So if I wasn't prepping meals and cooking meals and eating meals, we were doing everything else in
Yes.
in the kitchen. So I want to talk about how to make time for real meals in our
Hmm.
busy schedule. And I know we have a lot of moms who, they're trying to stay on budget, but the days get away from them. And so sometimes it's just easier, even though it's more expensive and it's not as nutritious, to just stop and get something or to order
Hmm.
something to go.
Hmm.
Or maybe cooking isn't our favorite thing. I heard you say before we started recording, your love language is feeding people, throwing
Yes.
food at them. And that is my love language too, but that's not everybody's love
Hmm.
language. Sometimes when I say, cooking is what I do on my Sabbath as a way to relax, they look at me like I'm crazy because that's like listening to fingernails on a chalkboard, that cooking is enjoyable. No way, right? So I wanted to talk with you about how to not just make time for it, but
Hmm.
how to actually prepare meals that our kids are going to love. They're nutritious. They're going to ask for. They're not going to complain about. I don't
Hmm.
know if you came from a type of family as mine, but whatever was put in front of me, like that was what I had to eat. There was like
Yeah.
no complaining
Creamed.
whatsoever.
Yeah. Creamed tuna on toast. Were you ever served that?
Yes, I'm a Southern girl. We had tuna casserole that had cheese in it. Yes.
I,
Anyway, I
oh.
digress. My daughter, she used to watch these TikToks. It was during COVID time. She used to watch these TikToks of a guy her age, so like he was in his mid 20s, and he found a Betty Crocker
Oh no.
cookbook from the 70s, the 60s and the 70s, that all of the ingredients came from cans and whatnot, right? And so he would do these reels where he was creating these recipes verbatim with the materials and the supplies that were in it. And then he would show it. And the reels were just so funny. He was like, why are we putting these two things together? Anyway,
I think I've
I
seen that.
digress.
I think I've seen like
Yes.
meat and jello in some of the same
Yes.
recipes. And I'm like, oh my gosh, no, no, no,
My
no, no.
mom's one of her specialties was shrimp mold. Not mold, MOLD, but mole. And it was gelatin and shrimp, and it was pink, and it jiggled. And anyway, I know I could see from your face. Okay, so
I
let's
had
get
to
out of
mute my
the.
I had to mute my microphone because I just oh.
I know, whatever. All right, so let's start at the beginning. Let's start with breakfast.
Okay.
So, when you are homeschooling, there really is such a thing as breakfast number one
Mm-hmm.
and breakfast number two. And if you
Mm-hmm.
have growing boys, sometimes there's even a breakfast number three. So, how do you guys, or how do you handle the morning meals? And what does like breakfast look like for your family?
Sure. It looks like protein, 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 because you are right. I mean, not to be cliche or hop on the protein, trend that's happening right now, but it really does make a difference. And protein for breakfast just fits into our lifestyle. We live on a homestead, for all intents and purposes, a small hobby farm, whatever you want to call it, and we raise chickens. And so we have a lot of eggs because we have a lot of chickens because chicken math is a real thing. It's a real thing. We're already considering ordering more and keeping them during the winter. I also love sourdough. I'm a sourdough junkie to a certain degree. I don't always make it though. I also buy it. We go to music lessons on Tuesdays, and our music instructor bakes 2 extra loaves for me, and I buy them from her. And that is also part of our supporting friends
Mhm.
breakfast. So for us, it looks like eggs, and sometimes I have to buy eggs, like in the winter time, right? No shame in the homestead game if you have to buy some eggs every once in a while. So it really looks like protein, which is usually eggs and a meat, and then usually a bread. So if it's, we call it Jamie bread because Jamie makes it. It's delicious and she's good at it. Or sometimes I will make things, but it's usually eggs and a meat like bacon or sausage, and then bread, or sometimes eggs, meat, and fruit. It just depends. But recently, I added just sausage and fruit into the rotation. So I'll buy berries or something like that. So berries, and cut up some oranges and apples and put a lot of sausage links on a plate. And that is breakfast. And that is great for a morning like today where I had 2 back-to-back interviews and I need them to have protein and have something that I know that they will eat. And berries are a bit of a treat because, oh my gosh, if anyone's budgeting for groceries these days, you have to budget for berries. And they will finish it all in one meal. So why not buy it for one meal rather than being like, oh, these didn't last, right?
Mhm.
This is our sausage and fruit morning, and that's when we're gonna do it. And we just fit in multiple breakfasts into our day in a sense because my husband Chris and I wake up hours before the other children. Most days. Sometimes we don't, and those are not such smooth mornings. But when we do, we can't just have coffee first thing in the morning and no protein. So I will usually have made whatever the breakfast meat is, along with eggs for us, and then that is ready to be slightly reheated for them when they come downstairs. So we are true homeschoolers. We let them sleep in for the most part. We usually don't let it go past about 8:30, 9 o'clock or so. Sometimes we let it go till 10:30 and then it's brunch, right? It just depends. We are so go with the flow and like, are people sick? Are we getting over things? And if that's, I mean, from a very pragmatic perspective, that has been the last 2 to 3 months, right? Somebody's not feeling well. Well, let's let them sleep in a little bit more. So I just am very okay with us not sitting down at the breakfast table together all at the same time. Because if I waited till 3 hours after I woke up, I would be a hangry mom. And I'd be like, sit down. It's getting cold. And sometimes I am, Carrie. Sometimes I am. But that is my own fault. And I recognize that and apologize and all the things and just make sure that I have protein in advance. But if I make sure that it's a protein heavy breakfast, we don't really do cereal. That's like a fun, snicky snack for us, if anything else, because they will ask for it every once in a while. And we give it to them as a snack, never a meal. Um, if I make sure they have that protein, they are not begging for a second breakfast. I say this with a genuine grain of salt because I have a 4-year-old boy who goes on hunger strikes and then goes on eating binges. And he can eat, wake up with us at 6:30 or even 5:30 sometimes, pound a couple of meat sticks and a muffin or something like that, have full breakfast with his sisters, ask for another snack before lunchtime, and then go on from there. So I just keep a lot of protein heavy snacks and then a snack basket that he can have access to and ask for, so that he's getting his needs met as they change each day, which it's different every day. So that is going to stress some people out when they hear that, that it seems very willy-nilly. But honestly, I've got homeschool lessons to get through, and I can't predict or project his hunger levels onto him. He's only telling me how hungry he is or isn't, and then I'm just making sure I have protein around to meet those needs.
And I'm glad that you brought up the snacks because actually, at least in our home, I came to realize that a lot of times breakfast number two, or in my son's case, when he was growing, breakfast number three, it really wasn't. It was more like he just needed a mid-morning snack,
Mm-hmm.
but it was more than just a snack. It was a really
Mm-hmm.
hearty kind of, snack. And so that's why. very early on, I started, you have a snack breakfast. I called it our snack drawer. And I had two of them. I had one in the kitchen, which had all the dry kinds of proteins and
Hmm.
bars and nuts and, all of the things that I knew wasn't like sugary. That was just going to
Yes.
cause them to crash, right? But then I also had a snack drawer in the refrigerator that was at a level they could
Yes.
reach. And in that were the cut fruit, the washed fruit, the cheese sticks, all that kinds of stuff that was ready to go, or the
Hmm.
overnight oats and stuff like that. So all of that was in the snack drawer in the refrigerator. There was a snack drawer in the kitchen. And really the only rule was you can have anything in there, but you had to ask me first.
Yes.
And so what that did was, like you said, when they were hungry, because
Hmm.
we don't want hangry mamas and we don't want hangry kids, especially when they're hormonal,
Yes.
that they asked, can I go get something to eat? I knew that
Hmm.
whatever they were choosing was already mom approved
Yes.
and it wasn't going to cause a mood swing or a sugar
Hmm.
crash later on. And what it also allowed me to do was it never failed. I could be right in the middle of this awesome, finally, math lesson with one kid, and then the other one's over here melting. Can I please eat? Can you come fix me this? And then I would have to stop and go, whatever. So it also helped with that, where I could just look
Hmm.
and say, sure thing, kiddo, go get it, and then off they would go and do it. So that was really, really helpful with that whole breakfast number two,
Hmm.
breakfast number three. And I love how your breakfast, it sounds just like my daughter-in-law. Literally every morning she has eggs and either bacon or sausage. And
Yep.
I was like, wow, every single morning.
And then you just get used to it. Like I baked bacon in the oven downstairs. That's a big trick too. If people aren't doing that, I don't know how you're making your bacon. I can't even imagine your kitchen. So messy. But if you bake it in the oven, you can put it in and walk away, flip it after 22 minutes, and then come back and like basically smell when it's done. So it's no skin off your back. It just really then you can use the bacon grease. You have your little butter. Most people have their little butter containers out. I use mine to dump bacon grease in, so that's how I can keep it with a lid on it. And I just stopped seeing it as a chore, right? And
Mhm.
one of the reasons also do hot breakfast and make it homey and cozy and very casual is so that I'm meeting that need. So they have felt cozy. They felt like I cooked them a meal. They felt like it was casual and they could kind of come and go. And it's a low pressure situation, high protein, low pressure situation. And so there isn't mood swings and crashes. And then when they do come to me, like you were giving that example of the math lesson, and they're like, I just want you to make me something. They haven't had something super cold and they're craving that warmth and that coziness or whatever it is. And I've already provided that for them. So then they're satisfied with a yogurt or a cheese stick or some nuts or even a protein bar that has pretty clean ingredients in it. And that need has been met as well. So it's not just what we're feeding them, but like honestly, the temperature of it really matters too. But we do sometimes, every once in a while, because you talk about grabbing stuff out, we kind of turned it into a treat. I mean, I've had my seasons of hitting every coffee stand here in the Pacific Northwest and basically trying all the bagel breakfast sandwiches. But if we have to, for example, had to go to the DMV early in the morning and we said, okay, kids, we're going to wake you up early, but don't worry, we're going to stop at a drive-through on the way. And we just leave a couple more minutes early and make it like a special treat, almost like a thank you for waking up early, and going on this terrible adventure with us.
I love that. And I love how, homeschooling, it's so different as it
Hmm.
should be for each family because like in our family we're all pretty much morning people, and so for us it wasn't a kind of go with the flow, come and get whatever whenever you want. That was like the beginning of our day.
Mm.
So that's how we all knew, almost like the dinner bell, ding ding ding, we're all going to come to the breakfast table and we're going to eat breakfast together. But I used to call it soul food time,
Yeah.
because I realized early on, when I would try to get through our morning devotions, Francesca would just go off on squirrel moments. and she would notice everything outside and just totally interrupt what I was reading from the Bible with whatever she just saw. And then Joe couldn't sit still. So he's over here just doing whatever it is that he was doing. And I would get so frustrated just trying to read the Bible. But we did it one morning out of necessity because it was a super early morning. We had to go run some errand. And I fed them their breakfast first and then started reading from our devotional. And it was the best Bible time ever because
I
their
love
hands
that.
were full, their mouths were full. I had their undivided attention. And so for us, breakfast was still very low key because I didn't cook an awful lot for breakfast. But that was like our beginning of our day. And then off we would go and do our stuff. So,
I really like that. I read about that in your book and I really liked that. And if I want them all at the table at the same time, I will turn on an audiobook.
mhm,
And we will listen to the audiobook and it slows down breakfast too. I'll look and see
mhm,
how long the chapter is, and oftentimes it's an average of like 15 to 20 minutes or so. And that's a good amount of time for breakfast. And so when
mhm.
the chapter is over, that's the signal because I've got some mega slow eaters and some really fast eaters. And so if I want to hold the space for them like that, where we're all together and have a definitive marking of like, okay, that's done. Please go get dressed and go feed your animals and then come back for homeschool. We've technically kind of already started homeschool at that point, you know? And then
Mhm.
we definitely start the day feeling more accomplished.
Yeah. All right. So breakfast, gotta have it. I love the
Hmm.
protein. So lunch, though, can be a little tricky too, depending on the ages and the
Hmm.
stages and how many kids you have.
Hmm.
And in your case, you're a homesteader, so you've got even more chores, let's just say, than
Hmm.
maybe some of us do. So, what are some of your go-to nutritious, no nonsense, but crowd-pleasing lunches that you use?
I had to ask my children about this. I had to ask them, what do we usually do for lunch? And they told me the true answer. Because I was like, oh man, should I share my soup recipes? Or like, but do we eat soup? I was really kind of wondering, what do we do for lunches? And they are completely dictated by our afternoon schedule.
Okay.
On Mondays, we host homeschool group at our house from 11 to 3. That is smack dab in the middle of lunchtime, and we do that on purpose. And there's no pressure. People either bring their own lunch, or oftentimes I'll make a big pot of homemade mac and cheese for everybody. And so kids can kind of come and go. Or the other day, a mom requested that I make my pumpkin chicken curry for everyone. And so I made that. And I love that because feeding people is my love language. So I love making more and extra food so that the kids have this wonderful memory of me. You know, they can come into my kitchen and they're going to be fed. They can make requests and they don't have to feel bad about it. And it harkens back to my grandma Huck and learning from her, and just that was her love language to feeding people. And I loved that. And she had her things she made. So I kind of felt pressure to follow her lead and maybe try to make all of the lunches that she always made for us that made us feel good, and do that on Mondays for the group. But then I just naturally am better at mac and cheese and I'm naturally better at curries. And I'm not sure my grandma ever made either of those things, you know? And so I've kind of found my way for like crowd pleasing lunches, you know, and helping with that. But people bring their own food, or they know that they can eat something at my house on Mondays. So that's what we do on Mondays. Tuesdays, we have lessons all afternoon. And so we got into the habit of making that the lunch out. And a New Jersey Mike's opened here, and we are thrilled to pieces because that was our go-to place on Maui, and now we have it here. And it's literally on our way to all of our lessons. So we have our high protein lunch again. They get their sandwiches exactly how they want them. And it's honestly cheaper than me buying all of the separate lunch supplies and hoagie buns and all the things and making the sandwiches at home. So I have that kind of down to a science on Tuesdays. And it's not every Tuesday. Sometimes we just throw some snacks together. Because we've had such a protein heavy breakfast, they're often not hungry for lunch right away. And so it ends up being more snacky. So on Wednesdays, we eat at home, and that's usually a very warm lunch. Like this past Wednesday, we had nachos. easiest lunch you can throw together and always a crowd pleaser. And Trader Joe's has all the ingredients. I would say Wednesdays are like Trader Joe's lunch day, where I am throwing together ingredients from Trader Joe's. And I know that not everyone has those, but I'm sure you can find chicken strips and onions and chips and cheese and queso and all the things and really kind of put it together for them. So Wednesdays we eat at home. Thursdays, my babysitter comes from 12 to 4. And so 12 o'clock, she's going to come. Has she eaten or not? It really depends. So I always make sure to include her in Thursday's lunch and consider her when I'm making stuff with her needs that she has. So I think that's usually the day that I do chilies and things like that. And I made an all meat chili the other day with this is going to sound nuts, but you need to know that all of this stuff was on sale at our and we live in the middle of the woods in Idaho. So it was beef liver, yak, and elk. And
Ooh,
it was divine. It was the best chili I've ever made. And, I'm always torn about whether to tell people what's in it. Like, just eat it. You're going to love it.
it sounds very good.
It was so good. It was so good. And so I look for meat like that that's on sale, right? And then keep it in the freezer and usually throw it into a soup or something like that. And then Fridays we pick up our raw milk at 1 o'clock from a farmer from a parking lot. Did I mention we live in the middle of the woods in North Idaho? And that's like normal behavior to meet someone in a parking lot for contraband food. It's not contraband here though. So I asked the kids, I said, what do we usually do on Fridays? And they said, well, we usually just grab some snacks and eat them in the car on the way to pick up our milk. And so those are the days I do a platter lunch. Never underestimate the power of a platter lunch. And that is a lot of whole foods put onto a plate, and everyone gets to pick and choose what they want. And my only requirement is you have to eat some protein because I will know whether you did or not. Because if you did not, you're going to be coming to me in an hour and being like, Mom, I'm hungry. And
Mhm.
and so they know that. They know that I know that, and now they know it inside their bodies too, and they make sure to have that. So that's kind of what we do. We technically have two lunches where we're eating them with other people. We have one lunch on the go. That's three lunches. One is like a warm, hearty lunch on Wednesdays, and then Friday is a platter lunch. And so I just go with the flow of our schedule. And I think that that is okay. Rather than trying to like force our schedule around meal
Mhm.
times or anything like that, I do the opposite and just make sure that I have protein and as whole of foods available as I can for them. That's not always the case. Sometimes it's bagel and cream cheese on the way out the door. And I think that's okay too.
I love your contraband milk. Love that. I love that. And I live in California, so I know that there are some contraband milk suppliers out there. I have just yet to find one. But uh,
Oh,
I
okay.
know for us, though, lunch was kind of like because I'm from the South, that's really our
Yeah.
supper.
Yes,
So
yes.
lunch for us tended to be, and my husband, for the last half of our homeschooling, worked from home as well. So
Mm,
once the kids got older, really lunchtime or supper, Laura Ingalls
hmm.
Wilder's, was really the meal time for us when we were all together. And that was huge. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later. But so lunch tended to be for us more of the heavier, or at least all of us together. And
Yeah.
because I love cooking so much, and
Hmm.
because I was getting overwhelmed with how many meals I was cooking and preparing, that's when I started instituting with my kids. I assigned them a day of the week. And then as they got older, 2 days a week. And
Hmm.
so that was my way of teaching them some very basic skills. And I actually started with eggs, like all the different ways that you can
Yes.
make eggs. But, moms will say, but even my 5-year-old, and I'm like, yeah, you can teach
Yes.
them. You probably would hate this, but you could teach them how to make cinnamon toast. You could teach them how to
Oh,
make
that sounds
avocado toast.
delicious. That sounds
There's just so
delicious.
many things. And they're the ones that can put a bagel and cream cheese together. I mean, that's
Yes.
not, a hard thing. But I would teach my kids simple. Um, recipes, grilled cheese, quesadillas, tacos, that kind of stuff. And then whatever their day of the week was, they just knew that they planned it. They had to give me the grocery list to make sure that, those supplies were in the house. And then part of their schoolwork, if you want to call it that, for the day, like for instance, Mondays were Francesca's, she just knew she had to finish up her work or take a break so that she could
Hmm.
make all of us lunch while we were finishing up. And then she would call us to the table
Hmm.
and we would eat whatever Francesca made us. So when she started her journey of vegetarian, becoming a vegan, we just knew we were going to eat salad or we were going to eat, a lot of chopped veggies and fruits. And we just call it charcuterie without the
That's
meat, right?
awesome.
And then when my son, his was Thursdays, and so he just loves meat, 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 and he wanted to
Hmm.
learn how to make, homemade hamburgers and stuff like that. And so, but for a while, we just knew if it was Joe's day, we were eating grilled cheese because that was what he mastered and that's what he liked. But I didn't care at this point because it
Hmm.
was two less meals I was in charge of. And then when they each got 2 days a week, that was 4 days
I was thinking
I
about
didn't
that.
have to do, right? And so it was kind of like, I don't care what you feed me. I'm just grateful
Hmm.
that you're cooking and we're all going to sit here and eat this. And this is fabulous. And then little by little, as they got older and as their skills developed, they just learned how to make different things. And now both of my kids are really good cooks. My daughter-in-law loves me because I gave her this husband
It's
who can
awesome.
cook fabulous meals. And my daughter still cooks for us. She made this delicious chicken the other night. It was so good. So that was kind of how we dealt with the lunch, and that's how I taught the
Hmm.
quote unquote home economics
Yeah.
to the kids. So yeah.
I read that in your book about them taking over the meals. I'm not quite there yet, because I love cooking so much. I'm a very passionate home cook, and it's my happy place. It's my quiet down spot. And they do ask to help, and I'm going to be just completely bluntly terribly honest, I will say yes to them helping less than 50% of the time.
Mhm.
Because sometimes we just have to get this train going and I just need to go. And yet they are involved. It's just not an automatic yes every single time. I don't put that pressure on myself to be like, yes, I need you to do this. Instead, they do make their breakfast sometimes, especially if we've moved on to our work while they've woken up late or something. I'll be like, make your own eggs, or one of them will choose. All three of my girls can cook eggs. And then there's also the toast station too. And so I actually love the cinnamon toast idea. I think about that sometimes, how we used to have like, ooh, the butter and the cinnamon sugar combo. Oh, like so good. But they'll have the toast station and I'll say, oh, toast popped. And then someone jumps in, right? And
Mhm.
so I try really hard, even if I don't say, yes, you can take over. Yes, I'm going to patiently teach you how to make a poached egg today. I don't know how to do that. It's never going to happen. They'll have to learn that themselves. But instead, I'm like, I don't have the time to patiently teach you that right now. So I'm just going to plow through this.
Mhm.
And then if you could help out with the toast, that would be great. Or like if you guys want to make eggs today, that's great. But they have to float test the eggs and all of that. So they're involved. They know how to salt and pepper things. They eat a lot of spice, right? I've, slowly but surely trained their palates out of, bread and cheese, bread and cheese, bread and cheese, no flavor. And they're responding. So they do come in and make their own things every once in a while and put together their own combinations. And I will say, as just a tip, do not underestimate the power of cream cheese. You can put it as an extra protein in just about anything. We eat cream cheese omelets. Have you ever had a cream cheese omelet
I don't think so.
or a cream cheese scramble? These are two very common things in our house, and sometimes we'll even make them for lunch as well because it is like so much protein and so creamy, and it's like oddly delicious.
I'm gonna have to have that for lunch. Thank you, my dear.
Oh, you're welcome.
So speaking of elevating meals with spices and seasoning,
Mhm.
so tell us, we're doing dinner, we're doing lunch, we're doing whatever meal. What are
Yeah.
your tips for totally elevating a very plain whatever meal into yumminess, deliciousness?
Oh man. Well, I am so fortunate. In my entire life, I have had excellent cooks go before me. And one was my grandma Huck. She was an excellent, excellent, excellent cook. And she would make noodles from scratch and all of these. Oh my gosh. Oh, I'm salivating thinking about her homemade noodles and broth over top of mashed potatoes. It's like a complete carb bomb. But if you've never had that, just please make some noodle soup and put it over mashed potatoes. Oh my gosh, it's so good. But she was so wonderful and she made everything with such love. And I had another grandma too, and she also made noodles from scratch, but hers just tasted different, and it's all the same ingredients. So how can it be that two people make things so incredibly different? And I think it really does come down to mindset and what it is you're putting into the food, really, and trying not to be hurried. I swear my eggs don't taste as good on the days that I am like frantic, hurry, hurry, sit down, the toast is popped, like all the things, right? But just really intentionally feeding my family and feeding them well. So I do think mindset is a little bit of it. You can learn from your mistakes. Like brown butter is the perfect example of that. Brown butter is considered a delicacy, but guaranteed brown butter was a mistake first and foremost,
Mhm.
right? And now it's a delicacy. So if you go in with that mindset of, I'm going to make mistakes, not every meal is going to taste gourmet, and you learn from it, it's a great, great, great thing. And just, I guess, this is a brown butter day, right? And so maybe I can turn this into a delicacy later. My number one tip for soups, every soup, including chili, including creamed soups, tortilla soups, everything is to add celery salt. Grandma Huck added celery salt to everything. It is a rare ingredient. You're not going to find it at like a little tiny store, but you will find it in a regular grocery store, or you can order it on Amazon. Celery salt is amazing. Keep in mind that it is salt, so when you're salting the soup after, just you've added a little bit of salt. So celery salt, number one tip, people will be like, "What is in this soup? Why does it taste so good?" Celery salt. I'm telling you. And while we're on the topic of soups, Trader Joe's coming in clutch. They make for $1.79 a diced onion in a blue bag. And you can take this $1.79 worth of onion and put it in your freezer and bring it out and add it to anything, soups, potatoes, anything. And you don't have to chop it and you can just move on with your life and it freezes perfectly and beautifully. So that is one of my tips. Trader Joe's also makes a pre-done mirepoix. Do you know what mirepoix is?
Yes.
Okay, celery,
Mhm.
carrots, and onions diced up together. That is a very fancy way. You want to elevate your cooking? Just tell people you added mirepoix to the soup. And really, all it is celery, carrots, and onion just together. That combination is mirepoix. And they make it, and you can freeze those containers as well. And it's the perfect ratio for soups. And so, if like on Mondays for homeschool group, right, I just take it out, dump it in the pan frozen, and it just does its thing. So fantastic, such a time saver if that's what people are looking for, and so affordable. Really, I appreciate that about TJ's.
In the South, my Cajun background, we call it the Trinity, but
Oh,
it is onions and carrots and green peppers.
onions,
Yeah,
carrots, and green peppers.
it's the
Oh,
Trinity.
yeah.
Yep, and that's what you put in all of your gumbos, in all of your soups, in all of your,
Yeah.
yeah. So anyway,
Okay,
I
that sounds
digress.
really good. That's okay. I'm going to digress now too. Did you know I was born in Louisiana?
Really? How
Yes.
long did you live there?
Well, 2 years. I was born there on like a crazy thing. My dad was in the oil fields down there, and then we moved back to Ohio after that. And then I had a good Appalachian upbringing, but I swear I have a little bit of Cajun spice running through my blood. Total sidebar. So that is my tip for soups and things like that. And just make it as simple on yourself as you can. And then just make it with such intention, right? Such joy. And just the experiment factor, right? Of like,
Mhm.
what does this soup need? What does it not? And season your food more. Recipes are not formulas. They are guidelines, and you have got to treat teaspoons as if they're tablespoons. And when it calls for like 3 cloves of garlic, there is no serious recipe that calls for 3 cloves of garlic or even one. If one says one, just substitute a bulb. Like that is how much garlic that dish needs. So when you're looking at the spices, figure out what the ratios are by putting them in your hand. So if you really want to know what a teaspoon of cayenne pepper looks like, scoop it out and then dump it in your hand so you can have a visual of what that looks like, and then dump it in your dish after that. Pinch your salt. I learned from my friend Chris, who's a professional chef. She said, pinch your salt, pinch your salt. I'm like, and at first I was like, ew, no, ew. And now I have a salt container from Italy on the side of my stove. I got it as a wedding present. I put it on my registry because I thought it was cute, and now I use it all the time. So I have the salt there, I pinch it, and I go from there. And it makes such a difference to be able to confidently reach in and grab spices. I take all of the shaker tops off of my spices and dump instead. Really, truly, it makes such a difference. So that's my advice for just add more seasoning, add more seasoning, add more seasoning, and use recipes as lightly as possible. So because of my background as a personal assistant, I also got to eat many delicious meals made by a private chef. And because there was a lot of downtime and one of the kids was interested in cooking, we would hang out with him a lot. And I learned a ton of tips from him. And two of my biggest takeaways are combine your fats and combine your meats. And by combine your fats, I mean don't just cook vegetables in just butter, although that's delicious. Cook it in butter and olive oil.
Mhm.
Cook it in bacon fat and butter. Cook it in bacon fat and olive oil. Combine your fats. Always have at least two fats in all of your dishes. I can't tell you how many postpartum meals I've taken to moms, and they're like, your green beans were the most delicious I've ever had. What is your secret? I'm like, two fats. Two fats. That is my secret. My green beans are no different than yours, other than they have two fats in them. And I also heavily season things. And I pinched my salt on them probably too, making sure that flavor is in there. And I add garlic powder to almost everything too. But the other part of that is combining meats. So if you are making a chili, for example, like I was just telling you about
Mhm.
my
Mhm.
crazy yak elk beef liver beef
Sounds
chili.
delicious.
It was so good. And I made it meat only. That was my first ever meat only chili, but we were on a cleanse, whatever. It was delicious. You can, when you're making your pasta sauces and things like that, you can use beef and then open up a couple of beef liver capsules. So they're dehydrated, right? And it looks like a spice. So you can start off with two and then add three and then add four to a pound of ground beef, or try different things. Look in the sale items. Elk and yak do not sell as fast as other things. Venison doesn't sell as fast as ground beef, and so it will often go on sale. And it's already frozen. It's still good. But anyway, that's a great way to budget and get
Mhm.
stuff, is to look in the frozen section for the things that people are like, that's weird. It's not. It's delicious. It's delicious. So you can open up those beef liver capsules and put them in, and people will be like, wow, why does this taste so good? It's like, well, I just dumped you with a lot more vitamins. And I technically kind of combined meats, if you will. I combined an
Mhm.
organ meat with ground beef, and it just tastes better. And so that's one of my tricks too. So you can add, I know a lot of people like to do like beef and sausage, and you can, but I prefer beef liver in the capsules with ground beef, or even adding it to a sausage. And it tastes fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Okay, those are some of my major tips. The other thing I would encourage people to do is to perfect a favorite dish. And the example I always like to give is biscuits and gravy. My husband's favorite food is biscuits and gravy. And me as his wife, so special. I would save it for his birthday every year. I would save his favorite meal for his birthday. Why? Why? I do not know looking back. But I would try a new recipe every year. And so many years in a row, I failed. So then I set myself up for failure. And I was like, oh man, I'm so sorry. I tried it this way this year and it really stunk. And I thought, why am I saving this? Why am I like withholding his favorite dish from him and not learning how to perfect it. So I learned how to perfect it. I'm happy to share my recipe with you too. It is like, I'm pretty
Please,
famous for my
yes.
biscuits and gravy. The gravy is spot on. And I made it so you can memorize it too, because that's one of my other top tips is memorize a recipe. You will feel like a just a baddie in the kitchen, let me tell you. If you're like, I can just do this from memory, it's amazing.
Mhm.
So perfect a favorite dish. So I learned how to make biscuits and gravy for a long time. For better or worse, we had it about once a week until I nailed it. And then we kind of switched it to like once a month or so, and I still make it for his birthday. And guess what? I make it for our daughter's birthday and our son's birthday because it's now their favorite dish too. And so it really has had this wonderful spillover effect. And that's a dish that I'm known for, and I'm so happy about that, right? I didn't eat it growing up and it wasn't really on my radar, but because it was my husband's favorite dish, I'm telling you, you'll earn brownie points if you like perfect one of your kids or your husband's favorite dishes too. So I just love it. There's so many simple ways to approach cooking in the kitchen with a lighter heart
Mhm.
and a heavier hand with seasoning.
I love it, and the tips are just so simple, but not
Mhm.
something you would have somebody tell you. So celery salt,
Yeah.
open up a
Grandma Huck.
capsule of beef
Mm-hmm.
liver.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I've been doing the butter thing forever, but like my mother-in-law, she would come over and I would make eggplant parmesan and I would
Oh,
fry up the
yum.
eggplant and I would have already the olive oil ready to go. And then before I would put the eggplant in, I would put a very healthy pat of butter in there. And she's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, this makes it taste way better. And
Yes, it
sure enough,
does.
it was my father-in-law's favorite. There was just something about my eggplant that was different. And I'm convinced because I made it just like my mother-in-law, but I put the extra fat in there, the extra butter. But
Mm-hmm.
my mom sweared by that. No matter what she was frying, she always put a very generous pat of
Yes.
butter if it wasn't already being sauteed. Um,
Mm-hmm.
in butter. So, and the three meat thing too. A lot of people don't realize this, but a true Italian, the secret to a true Italian meatball is three meats. So it's
Yes.
the ground beef, it's the ground Italian sausage, and ground veal. And when you mix those together with all your typical Italian seasoning, that's what makes the meatball the meatball.
I'm sitting here dreaming about meatballs. And I'll also add a sidebar about meatballs. They're not always Italian. I mean, though that sounds
Right.
delicious,
Hmm.
but when we're talking about lunches and things like that, I
Hmm.
have discovered, again, Trader Joe's coming in clutch. They've got
Hmm.
the mini meatballs in the freezer section.
They're delicious.
That and a bottle of barbecue sauce poured over that makes an excellent, excellent, excellent lunch.
Yes,
So
it does.
we love meatballs and we don't need to deny that. We also don't need to make it once once a week or whatever.
Right.
We can, right? But like I've incorporated meatballs and like some things I think of as just Italian into other dishes, or some things I think of just Mexican into other dishes. And
Mhm.
cumin is a universal spice. You'd be surprised at how many dishes, everything from like Indian and Asian to it's
Same.
not just a Mexican dish. Same with oregano, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
cilantro. It's like cross cultures and just, oh, I am so hungry now, Carrie.
Okay, well, speaking of that, and I can't believe we are totally running out of time. So, share with us your recipe for your gravy, your biscuits and gravy. Can you share
Yeah,
that with us?
I totally can.
Because
I
I know it's
totally
all right
can.
here. You've made it 5,000 times.
I have. It's my easy threezy biscuits and gravy.
Okay.
Okay, easy threezy. If you can remember the number three, you can memorize this recipe. So you just take a pound of ground sausage, and I'm sorry, it has to be sage sausage. It has to
Yeah.
be sage breakfast sausage.
Mhm.
So just make sure it has sage in it. Just 1 pound of that. It's prepackaged, so you don't have to memorize that. You're going to brown that up in a pan, and then you're going to add 3 tablespoons of butter and a third of a cup of white flour. So 3 tablespoons of butter and a third of a cup of white flour. And you're going to create a roux with that, right? And you're going to kind of coat the sausage. So you've browned the sausage, you've done the three and the third, right? And
Mhm.
once you have a nice roux and it's kind of bubbling and looking pretty good, you're going to add 3 cups of milk and then salt and pepper to taste.
Mhm.
And that is it. But and salt and pepper heavily to taste. heavily to taste. So that's it, the three, and the three, right? So you've got the 1 pound of ground sausage, the 3 tablespoons of butter, the third of a cup of white flour, the 3 cups of milk, and that's it. Salt and pepper to taste. There's some people who say, "Oh, that's not flavorful enough." I promise you it is. With the sage breakfast
Yeah.
sausage plus the salt and pepper, it's just like I'm a purist when it comes to that recipe. So you're not going to see me adding fancy schmancy paprika or anything like that into it. It is just so solid and such a crowd pleaser. And then think of the people that you're serving while you're making it too. That it really is kind of like our celebration dish, whether it's for a birthday or whether it's just for a Saturday morning and we all get to be together.
Mhm.
And oh, now I'm hungry again.
Me too. Me too. I'm gonna have to go make that for lunch today. Thank you so much. So I can't believe we ran out of time. So before you leave us, tell the moms how they can where they can find you, listen to your podcast, all the things that you offer.
Oh, thank you, Carrie. Yes, Elevating Motherhood. It's a podcast that's on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, really anywhere you listen to podcasts. My website is elevatingmotherhood.com. I'm only on Instagram to try to simplify my life, and that's at Lori Beth Auldridge. And then I'm so stoked for this. In May, I am hosting a homeschool moms planning retreat here at a beautiful, brand new 9,000 square foot lodge on Lake Coeur d'Alene. And it is going to be fantastic. 2 nights together, 3 planning workshops, and it's going to happen in May. So we can kind of like
Mhm.
plan the next school year before the summer starts so we can enjoy our summer guilt-free, knowing that we've loosely pulled together a vision and, shopped for curriculum and talked about what went well and what didn't go well and what the expectations are for the next school year and all of that. And just get a handle on that with other moms. So it's going to be 5 meals that you don't have to prepare yourself, the workshops, 2 nights of live worship music together, and then like lake views, fires, desserts, endless coffee. I am so stoked for it. So, information for that will be at elevatinghomeschool.com.
I got to figure out what I need to plan because I'm no longer a homeschooling mom, but I
Oh,
want to go so bad. So
so
when
I
you sent
think
me
you
the link, I
should.
was like, what can I be planning? Because I just want to go.
So it's
And my
so
friend
funny.
Desiree would love it if I was in Idaho, even if I'm further north. But yeah, moms. It is just awesome to hang out with other homeschooling
It
moms
is.
once a year, but to do it in a retreat like this
Mm-hmm.
and with such purpose of planning the next year. And I love that you added in the meals and the
Mm-hmm.
worship music. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
just everything about it. It just sounds perfect. And it makes me kind of go, why didn't someone think of this before? Because it's such a great idea. So, moms,
Oh,
I'm going to
thank
have
you.
that, all of this about Lori in the show notes, but definitely how to register because I'm assuming you're going to fill up fast.
I hope so.
And
I
also in
hope
the
so.
email that I send out. So thank you for joining us. This has been such a fun conversation, and I don't know, maybe I'll see you in May.
Oh, maybe. Thank you, Carrie.